morning. Today is Tuesday, March 15th. It's Tuesday, March 15th. It is 8:30 a.m. I'd like to welcome fellow commissioners, staff, guests, former commissioners, those watching at home to our meeting this morning. It is fabulous that everyone is here and takes great interest in our local county government. With that, I'm going to open up public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone who is here to address the Finance and Physical Resources Committee on any matters on the agenda or any matters related to general county government. Please feel free to come up and state your name, address. All right. Seeing none, I will close public comment. That will bring us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
Okay, we have moved by Commissioner Bukowski, supported by Commissioner Green. Any comments or anything that has to be pulled from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That will bring us to item number 3 from Fiscal Services. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of bonds not to exceed $30 million by the Kent Hospital Finance Authority for Pine Rest Christian Mental Health Services. Pine Rest Christian Mental Health Services has requested that the Kent Hospital Finance Authority issue bonds and loan the proceeds to refinance the authority's limited obligation revenue in refunding bonds, Series 2015, and the authority's limited obligation revenue bonds, Series 2017, and to pay the costs of issuing the bonds. The authority anticipates adopting a resolution authorizing issuance of bonds on behalf of Pine Rest Christian Mental Health Services on March 18, 2022, and will hold a public hearing concerning the proposed bond issue on March 21, 2022. The resolution, if adopted, will approve the issuance, sale, and delivery of the bonds by the authority. The authorization granted by the county is solely for the purpose of complying with the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. This indebtedness will not constitute a general obligation or debt for the county of Kent. Bond counsel has reviewed all documents.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wooden, supported by Commissioner Bukowski. I'm sorry, Commissioner Morgan. Okay.
I didn't know I sounded like Commissioner.
Yeah, it's,
I'm gonna have to lower my voice.
it must be because you sound so young.
Must be.
That's a good thing. Moved by Commissioner Morgan, supported by Commissioner Bukowski, and now we'll take questions, comments, and discussion on this item. Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. If the authority is unable to fulfill their obligations and make payments, who's on the hook for this?
Not Kent County. Jeff?
Yeah, the attorney for the authority, I'll let him answer that question. Hi, good morning. I'm Peter Lozicki. To answer your question, if there is a default, that yes, the county is not on the hook. It's solely the hospital is on the hook for paying these bonds, and they're being underwritten. They're being purchased by Macatawa Bank, so Macatawa Bank will be the holder of the bonds, and they are doing their underwriting and so forth to assure that it's an adequate credit risk for them.
Anything else, Commissioner Antor? Okay, Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I was wondering if we could get more detail about the intent to use these bonds. Is it for maintenance issues and renovations, or is it to build new assets?
Yeah, so these bonds are being used to really refund existing debt. There's a 2015 and 17 bonds that are out there. I think the 15s are maturing soon, and then the 17s we're kind of getting ahead of the curve to make sure that we don't get caught in an interest rate increase environment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bukowski?
That was my question.
Okay, anyone? Commissioner Morgan?
Peter.
Don't leave.
Good morning.
Hang out.
So 30 million, and McIntosh Bank's underwriting these bonds?
Yeah, that's a direct purchase by the bank,
Yeah,
yes.
you're seeing more and more of that, for the lower amounts, refinancing and financing of bonds. I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Yes, yep.
Anyone else? Now you can go sit.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions, comments, or discussion on agenda item 3? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That will bring us to item number 4 from the Parks Department. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve submission of a grant application to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund to purchase a 272-acre Cannonsburg Recreation Area and to commit to funding the required local match if awarded. Purchase of the Cannonsburg Recreation and Ski Area in Cannon Township is a rare opportunity to acquire over 272 acres of contiguous land with existing year-round outdoor recreation opportunities, including trails, snow sports, and wildlife viewing. This community asset has been a staple in West Michigan since 1965 and the only operational downhill ski facility in Kent County and the region. The facility is the home of many regional school ski teams, winter race events, Special Olympics, adaptive skiing, youth mountain bike, and youth trail running programs. Cannon Township has seen a growth rate of nearly 10% over the last decade, which is expected to continue, making it important to acquire parkland to meet the outdoor recreation needs of the community and the goals on the Parks Department's Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas Master Plan. Acquiring the land is estimated to cost $10 million. The final purchase price will be determined using the Department of Natural Resources appraisal process as required by the grant. The Parks Department seeks approval to submit a grant request to the MNRTF to fund $7.5 million of the land purchase price. The remaining $2.5 million is expected to come from local agencies, community groups, private and nonprofit philanthropy, and Kent County, and perhaps through the ARPA Act. It is anticipated that the county will be notified in December 2022 if the application is successful. If the grant is approved, an action request to accept the grant, appropriate the grant and required matching funds, and authorize the purchase will be brought to the Committee and Board of Commissioners. If awarded, funds would need to be expended within 2 years. Subsequent activities would include establishing an operating agreement with the current owner to manage the facility and conducting a master planning process to specify activities, improvements, and a funding plan.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Bolter.
Support. Support.
Is that all right, Commissioner Bolter? Moved by Commissioner Bolter and supported by Commissioner Womack. And now we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. We'll start with Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's okay. I get confused from many commissioners, apparently now. The work session we had on this, definitely illuminated the value in acquiring this space. I'll even admit I was a little hesitant at first, but the presentation definitely emphasized the importance of preserving this open space. And I, just wanted to make a point of, with this acquisition, potential acquisition, and with the other potential acquisition to the north of it, this will be a considerable acreage, similar to that of Millennium Park and some of our other regional parks. And I certainly just wonder, or would just challenge us to make sure that any master planning process we create is one that works to find ways to make this eventual county park, hopeful county park, a true neighbor regional draw in ways beyond skiing and other ski-related activities, just so that we can truly maximize the value of this asset. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Bolkowski.
Yeah, following up on that, today's vote is, I think, at least on this project, kind of the proverbial camel's nose, because there's so much work that has to go in with how does this get programmed. I had, an opportunity to talk with a community partner on the weekend, and, his excitement about actually, does the DNR run something there? We talked about a DNR outpost next to our parks headquarters. Is this a more logical place since the majority of this land is already wooded? just what this could be, because the skiing is 2-3 months at most in these weather conditions we've experienced the past few years. So anyways, definitely see this as a great asset, and it's, how to tie all these awesome parks together, from Townsend up to Pickerel Lake, what happens with the Pando project, partnership with Camp Roger, and then potentially Silver Lake. So, I mean, this is, it's pretty exciting. And then at the same time, making sure that, as I noted in the work session, this doesn't foreclose us, because this is a significant ask to the DNR Trust Fund, that it, doesn't foreclose us from other opportunities that come our way as we finish up the Lowell Regional Park and Two Rivers, and we have a lot of things on our docket in the park arena, and people love them. So again, good stuff. A lot more work happening.
Yes, Commissioner Womack.
Yeah, just very thankful that we have an opportunity to participate in reserving this natural reserve, Cannonsburg Recreation Ski Area. Just looking at development in West Michigan and knowing what could happen if we did not bring this. Not that developing new homes wouldn't be bad, but when we look at the price of homes in that area, I'm sure it wouldn't be affordable housing, which we are in much need of. So I am in so much favor of reserving what they do for us, and us to continue to be the winter wonderland that our license plates are saying. This is definitely a part of it. Just real supportive of the Cannonsburg Recreation and Ski Area. And we're not the ones putting up all the money, but when you look at some of these numbers, land is only going up in price, is not coming down. 20, 30 years from now, some new commissioners will look and say they were able to get that for that low price, even though today it may look a little high to some. I'm just very happy to be able to vote yes on this today.
Thank you. Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, I'm not sure if Sam knows this or not, but this money's coming from the DNR Trust Fund. I was wondering how stable that fund is. I thought that money was always earmarked through gas, oil, lumber. That's where they get the money for this program. And since this is a projection of 2 or 3 years out before we pay for this, is that money guaranteed once we get this grant approved?
We'll start with Al.
Yeah, I would say yes, that this program's been around since before my career started, 38 years, and it's been solid the whole time. The one thing we dance around sometimes is when different folks in charge change the rules some, but once they give an approval, it's pretty rock solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then was your follow-up about the match that we need, the
No, I didn't
additional
have
money?
follow-up. I
Okay,
just was wondering how stable that is.
how stable that is, okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing nothing else, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 5 from the Administrator's Office. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve amending the February 2019 agreement with Grand Rapids Whitewater to extend the schedule for the project and to authorize the board chair or designate to execute the amendment. GRWW, or Grand Rapids Whitewater, is a nonprofit foundation committed to raising funds to restore the rapids through a collaborative public-private partnership. The restoration of the rapids will provide social benefits to the community, which include providing educational opportunities for youth and increased recreational access and opportunities. The restoration is projected to have a significant economic impact on the region while becoming another factor in recruiting and retaining talent. The community anticipates inspiring regional stewardship of the Grand River. In 2019, the county agreement per Resolution 12/2018-108 to provide up to $1.4 million in funding for the project payable once GRWW met 3 specific milestones in the development and construction of the project. The first milestone was met, and the first funding payment of $500,000 was made by the county. Due to COVID-19 and associated permitting delays, the schedule for the remaining 2 milestones and associated funding payments needs to be extended. The parties have agreed to new milestone deadlines of December 31, 2023 for $500,000, and December 31, 2024 for the final $400,000. Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the amendment as to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wooden and support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Bukowski, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion, and we'll start with Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm, and you laid it out pretty clearly in the reading of the resolution, but just confirming, this only commits us to the 2 additional years that we had originally
Yes.
committed to. It does not commit us to beyond that or to backfilling the years that they were stagnant due to COVID, correct?
Right.
Correct, thank you.
And had I realized in November when Steve Heacock came and did an update that this was expiring at the end of the year,
Yeah.
that would have been a beautiful time to
Right.
renew it, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 6 from the Health Department. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Spectrum Health Strong Beginnings Program contract for 2022-2023, accept and appropriate $163,797 to the 2022-23 Health Fund budget, and to authorize the Board Chair or County Health Officer to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Spectrum Health and the Kent County Health Department have partnered for many years to provide the Strong Beginning services to women, men, and their babies from pregnancy through early childhood. The HRSA program specifically focuses on the African American population to reduce the disparities in the infant mortality rate through focused interventions, community outreach, and education to reduce barriers to care and to engage the African American community to advocate for culturally competent care. Strong Beginnings is a home visiting program that uses community health workers to work alongside nurses and social workers in the maternal and infant health program to provide services that do not require the skill or expertise of a nurse or social worker. Overall, Kent County infant mortality numbers are declining, but the disparities continue to be a concern. In 2019, African American babies died before their first birthday at a rate of 10.4 deaths per 1,000 live births, compared to 4.1 infant deaths for white babies. The African American rate is 2.5 times that of the white rate. While the disparities continue to exist, focused programs like Strong Beginnings are making an impact. To compare, the average of African American rate per 1,000 live births in 2009 through 2011 was 16.6, and for white was 4.4. The grant period is April 1, 2022 to March 31, 2023. Assistant Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Womack. We'll take support by Commissioner Bukowski. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion, and we'll start with Commissioner Bolter.
Madam Chair, I will need to abstain for the next 3 resolutions due to employment status. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, since all 3 are tie-barred, kind of, the main question I have is, in looking at this, I was shocked, like, wow, this goes to 2023. And then it's like, no, that's next year. And so, but the data, the best data we have is 2019. How come so much lag in this? I mean, as you're making your way, as you're flipping a coin, who gets to answer that question?
Have them both. Come on up.
I mean, first and foremost, thanks for the excellent work over the last decade on this, and all 3 of these show we're not taking our focus off this absolutely critical need, because as kids start, we hope they move in the right direction. But you got to have a healthy start. So anyway, so thank you for that hard work, and how come it takes us, we don't have 2020 numbers, or,
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Joanne Hoganson from the Health Department. We do actually monthly reviews of our fetal and infant mortality review. We have a group and an individual that's funded through Ready by 5 millage that reviews those. But to put that data all together into a usable form, there's a lag time. So we are now working on pulling together 2020 data, and we hope to, by the end of this year, have 19, 20, and if possible, up through July of 21, in a form that's easily available, easily understood by all of our community partners. So we're working on it, but there still is a lag time.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Womack?
Yes, and I want to thank Commissioner Bukowski for the great questions. I also want to know that in this description, we talk about the infant mortality rate disparities between the majority and African Americans. How did the name become the Latina grant? And can you give me some of the statistics on Latino brothers and sisters and infant mortality rate also?
Sure, I'd be
Oh,
happy.
before we do that, Commissioner Womack, you are one agenda item ahead of where we
Oh.
are. We're on item 6. That next one's item 7. You're-
Okay,
So,
we talked about the infant mortality rate too.
yep,
That in 7.
no, it's one vote for
One
every
vote,
item.
one question.
Yes,
Withdraw that, but
okay, let's
simmer
stick
on
with
it.
6. We'll get to that at 7. Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the infant mortality rates on the third page in this action request, one thing that did come to my attention was seeing how over time Hispanic infant mortality rates declined pretty significantly and have, while remained higher than the average and certainly higher than whites, it's still much more in line and kind of with the pack. Whereas African American infant mortality rates not only remain significantly higher than both the other cohorts, but have remained much more fluctuating, or have fluctuated more. I'm seeing here, multiple peaks and troughs, and I often try to see how they compare to economic climate, just because often that is an overlying factor. But we saw infant mortality rates actually climb during a period of economic growth, pretty substantial. And I'm just wondering, have we figured out what variables are in play there, and how that's affecting this cohort more than the other POC cohorts that we're measuring?
I'll do my best to answer that question. It's kind of the million-dollar question, like why? However, one of the things that I think we have to keep in consideration is that these numbers are very small. The number of babies that die in Kent County are very small. So a small difference is going to impact it greatly. So for example, if we have two twins that are born premature and die in the third week, that's 2 babies you're gonna see a big uptick in the percentage. So there is that factor. The other factor is that there's usually a real impact from stress in terms of things like prematurity, which is the number 1 contributor to infant mortality, is prematurity, particularly preventable infant mortality. There is some infant mortality that we're never going to get a handle on, but we would like to see the disparity come down, and we're really focusing on those preventable deaths. So prematurity is a major contributor, and there seems to be a correlation between stressful times and lack of prenatal care and prematurity.
Thank you.
Commissioner Antor?
Commissioner Wooden asked my question, so I'm good.
Okay. Back to Commissioner Womack.
Who are some of the partners that you're working with in this infant mortality rate reduction? Because from 10 years ago, the percentages have shown that you are doing a good job, even though we have this uptick. Just so we're aware of some of those partners when we're spreading the word on letting mothers know different agencies to go to, because I know it's not just the health department. So who are some of those partners that are doing a great job out there on this?
We work with principally around the social determinants of health. So what is causing women to experience the loss of babies because of avoidable factors? So things like making sure that they have transportation to their care, making sure that they are enrolled in Medicaid so that they get the prenatal care that they need. So we work with all of the major healthcare systems, so Spectrum, St. Mary's, Mercy Health, University of Michigan West. We work with all of those support systems like, baby support programs like Pregnancy Resource Center and HELP and all of those different agencies in town that provide the needed support so that the pregnant women get their needs met.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and all those that have to abstain. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 7 from the Health Department. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Spectrum Health Strong Beginnings Latina Grant Agreement for 2021-2022, accept and appropriate $51,612 to the 2021-22 Health Fund budget, and authorize the Board Chair or Health Officer to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments. The Board Chair or designee may approve increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. For many years, Latinx populations in Kent County have experienced disparities in birth outcomes with infant mortality rates, IMR, 2 times higher than Caucasians. Spectrum Health has created a Strong Beginnings grant program to specifically address these disparities. The Strong Beginnings program goals are to reduce the infant mortality rate for Latina women by providing focused interventions, community outreach, and education to reduce barriers to care and to engage the Latinx community to advocate for culturally competent care. The Health Department provides outreach support and case management services to Latina women who live in Kent County and are pregnant or the mother of a child 0 to 2 years of age. Overall, Kent County infant mortality numbers are declining. In 2019, there were 5.1 infant deaths per 1,000 live births for Latinx babies compared to 4.1 infant deaths for white babies. This is a significant improvement over the 2-to-1 ratio from 15 years ago. While the disparities continue to exist, focus programs like Strong Beginnings are making an impact. To compare, the average Latinx rate per 1,000 live births in 2009 to 2011 was 6.3, and for whites was 4.4. The agreement period for the Spectrum Health contract is March 1, 2022 through August 31, 2022. Assistant Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Womack, supported by Commissioner Bolkowski. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion, and we'll start with Commissioner Womack.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm very satisfied with the data I have just heard. I get it, and I'm just glad that this data has been collected and the action has been taken upon it to helping our Latina community.
Commissioner Bolkowski.
Thank you, Chair. So how many infant mortalities do we have in total in the county in a year? When you say those numbers are small.
How many babies die before their first birthday in a year? I don't have that number. I don't have that number right in the top of my head, but I can tell you that I get a report every month, and there are approximately 6 to 8 on an average per month.
All right. Because then it brings the question up again, this work, absolutely critical, needs to be funded, then not the question. It's like, okay, so they make it to year 1, and then how do they, even what's happening between 0 and 1 that helps them get to 5? Because when I think I know that the Strong Beginnings or the Early Childhood Millage Group is going to come forward with some statistics on, so the disparities are shrinking for infant mortality, but what other measures of success by the time these kids hit 5 do things spring back open, that there's racial disparities that then travel on, just go beyond. I mean, and yesterday I heard some gender-based statistics, that males have a 16 times higher likelihood to go to prison than a female. Now, I don't know what that is racially. However, again, we're doing something not well for our boys, maybe, as a community. But then again, what are we doing for the 5 to 10-year-old? I mean, again, just how are you all part of that mix? Maybe there's a question in there.
Yeah. Well, if I can dissect everything you just said, but I think
You're a better person than me. All right, go.
I think one of the reasons that the millage was written 0 to 5 and so many of our efforts are 0 to 5, is at age 5, children are usually into school. And then the school has, schools have so many different resources to support the family. They have, a teacher has their eyes on the child every single day when school's in session. So hopefully they have a system. It's that gap between the time they leave the hospital and start school that there's not necessarily anyone with eyes on the child to know if there's a developmental delay or if there's a health problem or some sort of danger to the child. So the beauty of many of our programs is we fill in from the time the child leaves the hospital to when they begin in school with a constant evaluation and particularly those children which would be at highest risk, and make sure that if something is detected, that there is quick resources applied to help the child thrive.
You good, Commissioner Bukowski?
I am. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
We'll move to Commissioner Womack.
When we look at that dynamic 0 to 5, what type of programs do we have that are engaging the fathers? Because from accidental deaths all the way to some of the things we're seeing almost monthly on the news from fathers actually committing criminal acts that have been taking the lives of these kids between 0 and 5. And there's no excuse for taking the life of a child. We recently had a 2-year-old that was shot. But within all of this, because there's really no but, that's no excuse, but that frustration of these fathers and them being first-time parents, which doesn't excuse that act, but since we're talking about monthly, we're seeing these different acts from fathers. What can we do or are we doing to engage fathers who are parents also?
In general, with our home visiting programs, we talk about the dyad of mother-baby. And so there's a real focus on equipping the mom to be a really good mom and to secure the safety of the child and make sure the child is getting all of the things that baby needs to get off to a good start in life. However, increasingly we realize that it's really not a dyad. There's a dad involved as well. And so we also provide support services for dad. In every home visit that we make, the dad is welcome to be there and attend. It's a very small percentage that are, but they're also welcome to be in there to receive the same education. But going beyond that, we also realize that dads have unique needs that moms don't have. So we also have support groups. There's something called the Fatherhood Initiative, which helps to identify what does a dad need, and this could be a custodial dad or it could be a dad that's not in the home, to make sure that they're getting the support they need to also support the mom and to be good dads.
Thank you, because it's really necessary too, because a lot of the mothers in our area are definitely, if not the breadwinners of the family, equally participate in the workforce. So there's a lot of time that those children are left with the father. You work, you watch the baby, I'll go to work. Secondly, the support that those fathers have to give those mothers, because they may have other kids they're taking care of. They're taking care of the baby. They're trying to go to work. And all it takes is one look the other way, one mishap, 1 second to lose a child. So just fathers understanding them being supportive to the mother and their role as a parent. I'm glad we have some initiatives, but it's definitely something a directive that we have to pay some heavy attention to from what I've been seeing in the news lately. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Joanne. This is a really tough subject, and so many numbers and so many thoughts go into this. Is there any, out of all these kids, you say there's like 6 to 8 per month that pass away, how many of them fall under the SIDS category within that? Is there a breakdown, and is there racial disparity in that category as well?
Yeah. SIDS is a term that we're using less and less, and the reason that we're using less and less is if it's sudden infant death, there's usually some explanation. And there is a small percentage that absolutely we have no idea what happened. The mom went into the crib the next morning and the baby is no longer alive, no longer breathing. But you will see a lot more today positional asphyxiation, which means the baby was in an unsafe sleep environment and actually smothered, died for lack of being able to breathe. And so the number of SIDS is coming down and the number of positional asphyxiation is going up. So if a baby is found in a crib or on a beanbag chair or in bed with mom, face down and not breathing, we're not calling that SIDS. We're calling the medical examiner's probably going to diagnose that as cause of death being positional asphyxiation. Yes, those numbers, if you add what used to be SIDS, you now look at SIDS and positional asphyxiation, it's about the same. So we continue to have our second most common cause of death in babies under the age of 1 is death related to unsafe sleep.
And does that cross all the,
A little heavier in low-income families and in minority families.
okay, thanks, Joanne.
Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. On the note of unsafe sleep, are we seeing in those instances that it is a lack of resources to get a safe and up-to-date crib, bassinet, that, you know, since as a recent parent, I know that those also have an expiration date. Is it the lack of resources to get a safe sleeping environment, or is it, you know, some children often struggle finding a way to fall asleep in a safe sleeping environment. They prefer to sleep on a parent, they prefer to sleep on mom or dad, and in a moment of exhaustion, they try their best to keep their child happy, and it leads to an unfortunate instance. Have we seen if one outweighs the other in these instances, or is it still just kind of murky?
We at Kent County Health Department and many other partners in our community do a tremendous job, and we distribute a lot of pack and plays. It's a huge part of my budget every year is we buy pack and plays. So if a pregnant woman is about to be discharged from the hospital with a newborn, the question is always asked, do you have a safe place for your baby to sleep at home? Our home visitors provides pack and plays to anyone that's coming toward the end of the pregnancy and still doesn't have a safe place for the baby to sleep. Unfortunately, and it's a heartbreak to us, many times when the baby is found, there's a pack and play sitting next to the bed, and they just didn't use it. So along with the pack and play, or along with guaranteeing that they have a crib or a safe sleep environment, we are really emphasizing the education needed to say, it is easier to sleep with your baby, but it's not safer. After breastfeeding or after you have taken the baby in to comfort a baby crying in the middle of the night, the baby has to go on his back into the crib with nothing else in there. That is the only way that a pack and play makes any difference. If it's not used, it doesn't help.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And abstain, same sign. Thank you. And that passes. We will go to item number 8, also from the Health Department. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Spectrum Health Ready by 5 Strong Beginnings Grant for 2022, accept and appropriate $182,387 to the 2021-22 Health Fund budget, and authorize the Board Chair or Health Officer to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions and amendments. The Board Chair or designee may approve increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Spectrum Health and the Kent County Health Department have partnered for many years to provide the Strong Beginning services to women, men, and their babies from pregnancy through early childhood. This is the third year of Ready by 5 funding that specifically focuses on the refugee population to reduce disparities in the infant mortality rate through focused interventions, education, and services. Strong Beginnings is a home visiting program that uses community health workers to work alongside nurses and social workers in the Maternal and Infant Health Program, MIHP, and to provide services that do not require the skill or expertise of a nurse or social worker. This grant provides funding for 2 full-time outreach workers who are each required to provide 40 visits per month. In December 2021, each outreach worker provided approximately 58 visits due to the demand for services. There is no separate tracking of infant mortality rates for the refugee population. However, a recent Michigan State University study found that mothers enrolled in Strong Beginnings had a 12.7% decrease in preterm births compared to similar women not enrolled in the program. Preterm birth is a significant factor in infant mortality. The grant period is January 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bolkowski and supported
Support.
by Commissioner Wooden. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I know I've asked this before, but it's always been a little bit, maybe my memory's just not as good. We levy the Ready by 5 millage, and then this part is granted to Spectrum, and then it's sub-granted back to us. Is there a reason we don't just cut out the middleman? Is it just because of Spectrum Health's greater vision and planning and administration of Strong Beginnings and the value from that, or?
Actually, the Ready by 5 funding actually is administered by First Steps Kent, and there's applications are received and reviewed from there, and then they award out. And so that award went to Spectrum. Then it's up to Spectrum to determine, it could be the health department or other departments who would get funded for this. So it's not, I mean, it kind of is even one more step than what you mentioned through First Steps Kent in the application, so.
And, I realize it's only been a few years, but we've always been the recipient of this grant from Spectrum, correct?
Yes, this is the second funding cycle. So the first 2 years, we received it, and then this is the second funding, the third year, but second funding cycle.
Thank you.
There are 2 years funding cycles.
Fantastic, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Womack.
Just want to thank you for your service on this, because I see that it's not just your job, that you two are very passionate about the lives of our infants, our children, and their education. So just want to thank you for your service.
Hey, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and abstain, same sign. Thank you. That brings us to item number 9 from Kent County Veteran Services. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate an additional $89,385 from the Michigan Department of Military and Veterans Affairs to the 2021-22 Special Project Fund for the County Veterans Service Fund Grant, and authorize the board chair or designee to execute the amended grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Kent County Veterans Services, KCVS, will receive additional funds for the 2022 CVSF grant from the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency in the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs in the amount of $89,385. This is an increase to the original grant award of $318,997 per Resolution 01272210 to bring the total amount of the grant award to $408,382. This is the fourth year KCVS has received this grant and the first time that KCVS has been awarded additional funds. The 2020 and 2021 CVSF grants supported 24 equine therapy retreats for veterans, participation by 21 veterans in the Art Prize Veterans Park Art Exhibit, visited by thousands of Art Prize attendees, purchase and delivery of beds for 50 veterans and their families, service dogs for 9 veterans, rapid bus advertisements and television advertisements, providing millions of impressions to Kent County residents. 2022 services funded by the addendum to the grant will include increased funding for house cleaning for disabled veterans, an opening day event at the Art Prize Veterans Park venue dedicated to veteran-created art, and a component of art therapy services for veterans and branded promotional items, KCVS outreach activities. The planned spending from the original grant amount of $318,997 will remain the same. The grant period is October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2022. Corporate Counsel has reviewed and approved the amendment to the agreement.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Commissioner Bolkowski, supported by Commissioner Antor, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 10 from the Board of Commissioners, the request for Veterans Millage. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to adopt a resolution authorizing that a proposition be placed on the August 2, 2022 primary election ballot for the purpose of a millage for services to veterans. Voters approved the first dedicated millage for services to veterans as .050 mils in 2014 with an expiration on December 31, 2021. A request was submitted by the United Veterans Council of Kent County for an 8-year dedicated .050 mil levy from 2022 through 2029 to generate revenues to provide services for veterans of United States military service and their dependents. The proposed millage of .050 mils would cost a homeowner $5 annually per each 100,000 of taxable value. The Veterans Millage Subcommittee of the Board, and that included Subcommittee Chair Borough Commissioners Sparks and Ponstein, reviewed the proposition and recommend that it be placed on the August 2, 2022 primary election ballot. It is within the discretion of the Board of Commissioners whether to submit the proposal to the electors who reside within Kent County. According to U.S. Veterans Administration data, 32,764 veterans reside in Kent County, which is the fourth largest Michigan county veteran population. 51 of Michigan's 83 counties posted a millage dedicated to veterans in 2020. The millage rates levied range up to .4993. 13 counties levied .050 mils or less, and 38 counties levied 0.06 mil or more. Corporate Council will review and approve the veteran millage ballot language as to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Womack. I think I heard support from Commissioner Antor. All right. Moved by Commissioner Womack, support by Commissioner Antor. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. We'll start with Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, because I didn't see it called out in the action request, confirming the main change in the language is not in the mill level, but rather explicitly calling out National Guard and reserves, correct? So ensure that those service members are clearly eligible for services?
That's correct.
Fantastic, thank you.
Commissioner Bukowski?
Yeah, I need to abstain on this. Page 107 of our packet, where it lists accessibility home assessments and improvements for safety and independence and home repair projects. Those are provided and administered by my employer.
Got it. Anyone else? I'll just say great work to the subcommittee on this. We know it's a additional effort to pick up subcommittee work and to vet all of that, and they did a great job. So we will take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and abstain, same sign. I said abstain, same sign.
Oh, yes, sorry. Got jumped ahead of myself.
It's okay.
Thank you.
We're good.
Super senior moment.
All right, that motion passes. That will bring us to item number 11 from the Administrator's Office. Al?
11, hold on, I got all my papers messed up. Let's see. Here, I'll just borrow yours if I can. All right, thank you. All right, action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority, the CAA, to execute an agreement with the City of Grand Rapids for the purchase of real property for development. CAA desires to purchase property from the City of Grand Rapids for the development of an outdoor amphitheater. The proposed amphitheater site of 11.6 acres would be part of a greater riverfront development of 31 acres, including a greenway, park, trail, and 1,500 to 1,700 housing units. The CAA Articles of Organization require approval by the Kent County Board of Commissioners and the City of Grand Rapids Commission for the CAA to purchase real property. Corporate Council will review and approve as to form.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski, support by Commissioner Womack. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. And we'll start with Commissioner Antor.
Yes, I'm not in favor of this. I still don't understand why we're trying to cram more stuff downtown when we got the rest of the county that has got some tremendous areas that just would work so much easier, be so much cheaper, has such a better impact, I think. Ease of getting to, getting out of, just more room, just a lot less expensive to go outside the city of Grand Rapids. So I'll be opposing this for all the above. I just feel like this thing, right from the beginning, even though there's been public comment and all this stuff, I think this was set in stone the minute they brought it up. It was gonna go downtown Grand Rapids. I don't think they ever considered anything else. I just don't understand why we continue to do this. So, those are my points.
Al, would you like to make a comment on that?
Well, I guess I would just say that I think part of it is they're planning 40 million in private contributions, and then also it's likely that Grand Rapids will need to bond for another 20 million. So wherever it would go in the county would need that kind of support to make that happen, plus the requisite parking and other amenities as well. So I think that certainly I think those are some of the drivers as to why it would be downtown.
If I could, Al, just the cost. Take it up to the rodeo grounds, it's gonna cost you about $1 million. Downtown's gonna cost you $40 million or $50 million. So I mean, it's comparing apples with oranges really, and I just think if we're looking at being financially prudent, especially with taxpayers' dollars, we should really take a serious look. We are Kent County, and we're not Grand Rapids necessarily all the time, so, thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Bulkowski?
Thank you, Chair. For today's history lesson for me, in 1980, I had an opportunity to take a class at a junior college downtown, and I would walk from my high school to the junior college past a hole in the ground. My grandfather was a carpenter, and I blame him. His name was O'Hearn, a good Irishman this week. And that's good. And so that's where I get some of it from. But anyways, that hole in the ground, where we forget that where we sit was kind of a swamp 200 years ago. And we had to do a lot of infill, and we have to dig deep to put great foundations on our buildings. That hole in the ground is now Amway Grand Hotel and the new tower, which 40 years later was just reskinned. But that investment, that vision by a few people who said, heck, we could build a lot cheaper somewhere else. Because that hole in the ground, which we will never see again, I hope, that hole cost a lot of money to put that hotel next to the river. So this project, that hole in the ground really was the tipping point for downtown. And downtown is a regional asset. Downtown is what got Switch here. They didn't fall in love with a pyramid on the edge of town. They fell in love with a community that had a vibrant downtown. So for me, this is the absolute right place. I know there was a lot of due diligence to put the amphitheater at Millennium Park. That is fact. They know that there's what's underneath Millennium Park is a lot of gypsum mines, which means it's a lot of holy ground. And so that being said, we have looked elsewhere. And if this amphitheater was in the middle of nowhere, it would not add to the vibrancy of our community. This is the place it needs to be. I believe there's great due diligence on this. The part that distracted me when I was supposed to abstain was item number 5. CAAs, one of the requirements is that the CAA will satisfy that there's adequate pedestrian, vehicular, and public transit access to the option property. That does not exist outside of the 6 cities. And in fact, pedestrian traffic doesn't exist very well outside of our business districts in all of our cities. So from a mobility perspective and an equity perspective, and just again, we need to have this vibrant community downtown. Because my house is on a lot smaller than this room. I live in the city. And so to get us together and have some vibrancy, that's what this is about. So for number 5 and all the other reasons, I just think this is an exciting next step for our community that's going to have massive impacts moving forward. So this is where it needs to be. And last but not least, I'm going to quote Lou Chamberlain again. Lou Chamberlain, and I verified this with him, the worst thing he did was buy cheap land on the river. That is a direct quote. Lou will tell you it breaks his heart that kids, poor kids, be they in Cedar Springs or in Grand Rapids or Wyoming, cannot get to that ballpark on public transportation. Their parents cannot get there. He has workers who cannot get there. But Lou put his own money on the table, so he bought cheap land on the river. And that river, you can almost see from here where that ballpark is. If we were on the rodeo ground where my Irish grandfather took me many a time, that's out in the middle of nowhere for most in our community. So sorry for toe-to-toe with Commissioner Antor, but on the positive side, this is our future, and I'm a rock-solid yes.
Commissioner Antor would like a second time at questions and comments. So this is your second
This is
comment.
my last bite at the apple. but
Exactly.
To Lou Chamberlain's point, that is one of the most successful minor league baseball parks in the entire country. As a matter of fact, it was the model for a bunch of development in that same arena around the country. They use Fifth Third Ballpark. And I would also say Frederick Meyer Garden, are we gonna move that to Grand Rapids, John Ball Park? Are we gonna move these things downtown? I don't hear a whole lot of fallout about, and you go on and on and on. We have all kinds of amenities around Kent County, and to think that they're misplaced because they're not downtown Grand Rapids where we already can't travel comfortably because it's so jammed up down here, it's constant construction. We are the Kent County Board of Commissioners. We are not the Grand Rapids Board of Commissioners. So I think we gotta think outside that box a little bit. Also, the hole you spoke of that was full of water, we couldn't develop that because we'd be covering up wetlands these days. I don't know how they got that done. If I tried doing something like that, they'd say you can't do it, that's a wetland. But somehow, money talks and they can skirt around Department of, DNR reasonings and NRC. Big hole, water in it, can't develop it. We just had a situation where we could have moved the Grand Rapids Homes for Veterans to the south. That was the original plan. That would have kept the amphitheater in place. They went ahead and tear all that stuff down. That was historic. And they couldn't because they deemed that property south of the Veterans Home as a wetland, which is a joke. But apparently there's a puddle in there, days a year. And so I'm just saying, if we're gonna talk about holes in the ground with water in them, it's a whole different playing field. And I don't know how they got that done, but I'm gonna stick to my guns and say, let's look at the entire county when we're looking at, building infrastructure that I think the rest of us would like to see sometimes too. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Antor, you good?
I am good.
All right. We'll go to Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I just want to say that Commissioner Antor, I've sometimes also thought like it would be better sometimes to have these type of things in some of our locales where we could have just so much parking. 36 in Division, the old General Motors place, just full of parking, places and other places. But at the same time, there are not cities and townships that have jumped up and competed and say, we want this. They have not included it into their master plans in the city of Grand Rapids, just the support that's coming from them, just the extra support on the bonding. Also, it was very exciting to have representatives from other facilities at these meetings we went to about the amphitheater that could consider it competition. Seeing people that represent Van Andel and DeVos and saying that this will enhance business for all downtown. And Grand Rapids is still the heart, so I have to agree with Commissioner Bukowski that this is the place for it and the access for all people to be able to come downtown. So just seeing the support coming from the city of Grand Rapids for this, I'm just going to definitely be in support of it. But I do respect what Commissioner Antor is saying, because one day we will not only have vibrant Grand Rapids, other townships will see the importance of entertainment and bringing people to West Michigan. But at the same time, we got Cannonsburg Ski Resort passed today. So it seems like we're doing things from Kent County that's well supportive of the entire Kent County here in West Michigan to make West Michigan more vibrant.
Hey, Commissioner Morgan.
Really appreciate the discussion on this issue this morning. I represent probably one of the most rural areas in Kent County, and I've always stated that I always thought the best thing we can do for this area and this region is to keep a healthy city core. And as far as infrastructure goes, we have Van Andel Arena, which is one of the biggest attractions for concerts in the area. And as far as infrastructure goes, yeah, it probably makes sense for us to locate this downtown. I really, I think that would probably be a good move. Just a history lesson. I've been on this board 22 years. We looked at moving the zoo. Remember that? And boy, there was a big effort to move that zoo out to the Meyer property, and we took it to a vote, and it failed. And it failed because folks didn't want to move the zoo out of the city of Grand Rapids. And, I mean, we had all this nice plan out there. We put a lot of effort in it. So we regrouped, and we improved the zoo, I think, well, certainly a long ways from when we bought it from the city for $2, but I digress. So anyway.
I thought it was $1.
Well, $1, $2, I don't know.
Sorry.
But see what $2 investment can buy you for
It was
crying out
one.
loud? So, my point is, I think that we've had, when I started looking at this, I was chair when we first started looking at Millennium Park property, and we went out there, and we looked all over Millennium Park trying to find a spot for this, and it just didn't, the timing wasn't right, and then the recession hit, and that was the end of that discussion. So I really appreciate the discussion. I think that, boy, the northern Kent County is going to be developed anyway, and it'd be nice to have something out there, Tom, but I believe as far as infrastructure goes and with all the problems, it'd be a nice evening to have an amphitheater downtown to come to. And I think it would probably increase the benefit of having Van Andel here too. So we've made a lot of investments downtown. I hope that the region appreciates that. This county board has put a lot of money into projects, but not only downtown, but some of these downtown facilities are regional. And just keep that in mind. It's just not for the city of proper. These are regional events that draw people in regionally. So that's what I have to say, so.
Hey, Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of brief questions about the financial obligations, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding them correctly. My understanding from our work session on this is that there will be no bonding and no upfront cost on the part of the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Al. My other question is, well, a follow-up to that. My understanding was that the city of Grand Rapids is going to consider whether to bond for a portion of this project?
Right. They have a funding plan, and tentatively, they are looking at plugging a gap of around $20 million. So no decisions are made whether, are they going to do that? Will it be through the building authority? Would it be through the DDA? But the county won't be asked to do it, and the county is protected in the event that revenue wasn't substantial enough to pay the debt service on those bonds. So it literally will be walled off from the county's stake in the CAA.
Okay, so that gets into my last question, and that is, what is the long-term obligation or exposure to that from taxpayers in the county that aren't city residents?
For that piece of it, I would say the exposure is for the city residents.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then, but if the CAA takes on any debt outside of that could be an obligation of the county
Correct.
taxpayers as a whole, correct?
Yes, yes. If we do other partnership agreements within the CAA umbrella, then the agreement as it stands, the operating agreement would be in place.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. Just given the discussion on the siting of the arena, I would simply put a fine point on this and say that while we are the Kent County Board of Commissioners voting on this question, we are voting on it to authorize the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority to purchase the property. This is a joint city and county authority. And so I do feel that is important to remember beyond the other benefits that have been shared about siting an amphitheater like this in our downtown. And while I empathize that there are many potential locations that could be great for an amenity like this. Given the question we have before us, I want to emphasize that this is to authorize the joint city and county authority. That being said, and I will be voting for this resolution, I at least wanted to comment on this not as a county commissioner who is a steward of our county resources, but as a county commissioner who represents the city of Grand Rapids, that this has been listed in some of the transformational projects that could be coming down the pike. And I would just emphasize that for a project to be truly transformational, it's more than just investing in the place, it's investing in the people. We've seen placemaking initiatives across this country and across this state go one of a few ways. They either just aren't successful. They're successful, but they're successful in bringing existing commerce and wealth within the region to just a different part of that region, or they're successful in bringing new wealth and new commerce into that region as a whole. Thinking back to the comment about Switch being attracted to this area because of our downtown. But also there's a need to ensure that, and while I hope that this initiative will do the last of those three, I also want to make sure that as resources and wealth and commerce is brought into this region because of it, that it is, the benefit of that is felt by as many of us as possible. And, I guess I would politely challenge with my yes vote that our friends at the CAA and our friends at the city ensure that, I know that there were hiring goals set and formal hiring goals set for the Van Andel Arena for hiring nearby residents in the neighborhood. I would just encourage them to even set more ambitious goals and maybe encompass other nearby neighborhoods. I would encourage them to value our smaller bidders when it comes to construction, our non-white contractors, our women contractors who are often, not intentionally, but often get left out of these discussions because of the sheer size of a project like this. And also just to find ways to emphasize and value those contractors who hire and include registered apprenticeships, because if we're talking about a public project and its transformational impact, I can't think of a better way than to find ways to help cultivate that skilled trades pipeline as well. So that is my polite challenge that I add on with my yes vote. I truly do hope that this investment will be a transformational project. I just want to emphasize that transformation requires investing in places and people. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bolkowski, your second bite at the apple?
Yeah, for the second bite, I will bring up the
And
fact
last.
that I used to pick apples less than a half mile off Alpine Avenue. Those are my German relatives that owned orchards out there. And I don't know if any of us have been on Alpine Avenue from 96 to 6 Mile Road during peak hours, but if we put 12,000 more people up at 10 Mile Road and M37, talk about the lack of infrastructure. I mean, all of our M roads are overburdened right now. You can't get to Meyer Garden here by car at peak hours because the Beltline is so jammed. I've had events at 5 o'clock in the evening there. Meyer Gardens at least has GO Bus eligibility, even though it's in a township. The zoo has the Laker line at its front door. So, I mean, the mobility options of our assets are growing, and Commissioner Antor is correct that Whitecaps Park is a model. And it also, according to its owner and founder, lacks the opportunities for so many people because of its location. I wouldn't call Lou, I have. Because it's not on bus, it is in a township, people can't get there. Back when I was a kid, yeah, it took you 1 minute to get into downtown Grand Rapids because no one was here. It's because of our vibrancy, it takes longer for us to get here. It'll take way longer to get to a Cannonsburg or a former rodeo ground on a 2-lane road if there's 12,000 people coming in and out, and the sheriff's department's going to be out there with 50 sheriffs directing traffic. We have that infrastructure to direct traffic downtown. I also invite, if we're going to do some more due diligence, let's go visit the Palace of Auburn Hills. It was a palace. It was a palace surrounded by 10,000 parking spaces.
Silverdome.
The Silverdome is second on my list. Joe Louis Arena, which was now replaced by the Little Caesars Arena, stayed downtown. It was bad infrastructure that had to be replaced. The city of Detroit is choosing to keep its jewels together to create a vibrant downtown, and it's happening. Listen to their mayor and the progress they're making. They still have progress on equity. They're working on that. So all of that being said, I'm just going to continue to reiterate that the points that Commissioner Antor made, I do believe they are superseded by the benefits of downtown.
So there are no handicapped people?
Commissioner Antor,
No
I'm sorry,
handicapped
you
people
are out
living?
of order.
I understand, but.
So I need to go to Commissioner Womack. Commissioner Womack?
Yes, I want to thank Commissioner Antor and Commissioner
Yes, it's third bite.
Bukowski.
No.
I enjoyed that almost
I
as
only have
much.
Womack down for twice.
Yep, only twice. But I do thank you, Commissioner Antor and Commissioner Bukowski. I enjoyed
And
that
last.
almost as much as I enjoyed watching Hamilton. That was just great. Little background: when I was 17, moved to New York, and in the apartment building I lived in, which people called the projects, we had parking for 200 cars. Most of us used public transportation. So out of 200 parking spaces, there are only about 30 to 40 being used because you had to live there to use it. So a neighbor of ours, about 17, would always argue he couldn't park his Mercedes-Benz there. So he said he's going to buy that one day from there and open it up to the public, not just, and since no cars parked there, he by the time, before he was 30, he bought it. He's now my richest friend that I know from parking, and he brings a lot of concerts to Grand Rapids and very supportive of Kent County when it comes to entertainment. I bring that up to say that I am hoping that city commissioners and leaders in Grand Rapids don't know what influence we're going to have on it, but the parking is already a problem in Grand Rapids, parking and traffic, and I just still don't think that parking, and accessibility for parking, and also making sure this is accessible by people with handicaps, but parking, it still does not seem like this is on the prioritized the way it should be in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's definitely a problem in New York, but they have enough parking. They had that foresight, and I just believe with some of my life experience, I would say that that is something we definitely need to prioritize. I know that they mentioned that they're also looking at buying the property for Charlie's Crab, the old Charlie's Crab. That has not been purchased yet, but it is in some of the plans. So I hope that that is acquired. And I just want to put out there again that this parking is going to be very, very important. It's already getting competitive in pricing. I just enjoy the fact that we do have our own parking underneath the county and how that comes in so handy, and DeVos having its own parking. But we're going to need more parking, and I just want to put that out there for the project managers of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan, for your second and last time.
Yeah, I think we've rubbed just about all the hair off this dog, but I have to tell you, Commissioner Bukowski had to bring it up, but I guess I'm happy to see Grand Rapids step up to the plate here.
Yeah.
Seen that a lot of times in my career here, but I'm just happy to see the city come to the window and participate. So I'm done.
All right. I have just a couple I want to go over. Can we address the impact on our existing amphitheater with Meyer Gardens?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the amphitheater will be a 12,000 seat venue and Meyer Gardens is 2,000. And I know there's been discussions, and there's a line in the resolution that it's in the intent of the board that the amphitheater not compete. I think that, there have been multiple contacts between Grand Action and Meyer Gardens. I know there's been at least 4 in-person meetings and a couple dozen phone calls. And so I think that while maybe everyone's not 100% comfortable, I think that, I think there's goodwill and not a lot of economic incentive for the amphitheater to compete with Meyer Gardens. I honestly think that both will thrive. You know, with the cool thing, and we'll see this with the next agenda item too, we have a lot of venues, a lot of things going at the same time, and I really think that a rising tide lifts all boats. While not everyone maybe agrees with that fully, I think the data would support that we're going to see an upsurge. And I was included in 2 meetings with national housing developers who hadn't really considered this market before. And both said that the key to their interest in building maybe the housing that goes with the amphitheater project is the amphitheater, that is the lever, that is kind of the key that they see will bring a lot of growth and development in the future. So I think that we've been sensitive to that. There's been a number of conversations. Our chair has communicated with Meyer Gardens. I know Grand Action has communicated with Meyer Gardens. So that would be how we see it working.
Okay, the discussion around safety. So you have a great big open amphitheater, multiple homes. Where is the conversation been on the safety aspect?
That would be one of many, many factors, along with traffic and noise and light and all that would happen during the design process, but they are sensitive to that.
Excellent. We talked about the financial impact for Kent County being none for this project. Commissioner Morgan highlighted that this would be the city with that. Can we also talk about the liability of the property? We're involved with the CAA. Is there potential environmental challenges with that location?
So the CAA, with the city's help, did do a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental study, and they also got a BEA done to the point where, well, we did ask that one of the conditions in the buy-sell be that the CAA file that to make sure that gets done. Now, a BEA really would only protect the CAA from environmental liability if the state or the EPA were to go after them. And there could be other liability for the site, so we went the extra step to make sure that the agreement exempts Kent County from any environmental liability associated with the site.
Excellent. All right. With that, we will take our vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that motion passes. That brings us to item 12 from the Administrator's Office. Al?
Yes, action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority, the CAA, to execute a lease of real property and enter into an operating agreement for management of 20 Monroe Live. GLC, GR Live, LLC, purchased 20 Monroe Live and approached the CAA to manage the venue on their behalf. CAA desires to lease 20 Monroe Live from GLC, GR Live, LLC for a 20-year term for this purpose. CAA plans to enter into an operating agreement for management of the property, which may be for a period of more than 5 years. The CAA Articles of Organization require approval by the Kent County Board of Commissioners and the City of Grand Rapids Commission for the CAA to enter into a lease of real property and to enter into an agreement, obligation, or commitment by the CAA for a period longer than 5 years. Corporate Counsel will review and approve as to form.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Motion. Moved by Commissioner Womack and support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Bukowski. And we'll start with Commissioner Morgan for questions, comments, and discussion.
Yeah, the CAA has a lot of our venues now, and they subcontract with SMG.
Which is now ASM, I believe.
Oh,
But yes,
ASM.
yes,
Well,
correct. Yeah,
When I was around, it was,
yes. And when I was around, it was as well, yes.
okay, so, so SMG operates a lot of our venues. Do they have the time to do this? I mean,
Yeah,
it's like they have a pretty full plate. I haven't talked to Rich. I probably should have.
and they also
Touch base
contract
with
with
Rich.
Live Nation to help with that as well. And so it's really helpful to have common management of the multiple venues because they can kind of place
Coordination.
things and coordinate things. And so we think that's a real add.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. If I recall correctly in the discussions with the CAA, it was shared that that operating agreement with Live Nation all but essentially guarantees that a certain number of performances or events will be at that venue to a point that they almost guarantee a certain degree of revenue from that. Am I remembering that correctly?
I can't speak as to a guarantee. I know that in talking to ASM, they're fairly confident that they'll have 40 concert-type events per summer, and then 10 other kind of events, community-type events and that type of thing. So I don't know about a guarantee, but I know they're really, really positive on that site and the potential to keep it busy all summer long.
My other question, just because I didn't see it in the action request or the resolution, do we actually know what the lease price is going to be for this 20-year lease?
No, I do not. In fact, the lease hasn't been negotiated yet,
Okay.
because, I'm sorry, do you have something there,
Just
Linda?
remember that the form of the lease comes back to the administrator for approval.
Okay.
Right. And so they basically, I think the parties, before they spent the legal time to negotiate an agreement, wanted to make sure that the city and the county were okay with that.
Yeah, I just posed that because between these two items, this actually is the one that poses more risk to the county, relatively speaking. I'm not saying there is a greater risk or not. This is one where if, say, they don't get enough venues, spaces, or ticket sales, they still have to pay a lease. And, knowing, I'll be voting for this to continue the process, and I trust our administrator to perform that due diligence. I just wanted to pose those questions, considering this is the relative more risky venture of the two, to the county at least.
So noted.
All right, Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, quickly following up on the two commissioners, Wooden first. Yeah, I mean, if they want the CAA to manage it, why do you have to lease it? Just a contract to manage. So I trust the CAA and the parties, they understand all of that. So we'll be interested in what that financial obligation might be to us if that industry has a significant downside. And then coincidentally, Commissioner Morgan, I actually asked that question during our amphitheater work session, and this was brought up.
Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. And the quick answer was, Mr. McKeegan felt they had the management capability and to bring in staff for that. And he actually talked about, like, at the lower end of their pay scale, great benefits. For example, making a number up, there's 10 days you need a box office person at Van Andel this month, and you need 10 days across the street at 20 Monroe Live. Now they could be the same person working 20 days, so that they're going to have more opportunities for folks that again, the simple stuff that we take for granted, and who's pouring your beverage, who's popping your popcorn, and taking your tickets, all that stuff. So this actually will help at that end of it. And so that was according to Mr. McKeegan.
Good. I have a lot of confidence in.
Okay, anyone else? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That will bring us to Commissioner Miscellaneous. Start with Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple comments. One, I'm a little disappointed that no one was here from any of those organizations to talk about this today. I really would encourage them to come to the full board meeting when we take this up. I don't know if that was just a miscommunication on our end or what, but it's an important project, and I think to continue to create strong relationships, they should be here. Second point I want to make is I want to acknowledge our chair, Chair Steck, and all the work that he's done to make sure that this continues to move forward. I don't think he's here anymore, but, you know, when this started when we started talking about this actually during the pandemic, you know, there was a lot of work and a lot of pushback on making sure that the county wasn't going to be financially liable, the county wasn't going to be committing tax dollars county-wide to this, because it didn't seem like the county was being brought into the process early. So this has really morphed from the beginning, and I just really want to acknowledge all of Al's work and Stan's work and Linda's work, because I think they really heard the board. They did 3 work sessions, they heard from us, and I think it's kind of getting, it's kind of shifting into where it needed to be. So I just really wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Morgan?
Yes, can I have a request to Al? Hey, Al, can you fix that clock for me?
And the clock in the other room, too.
Time and place matters, and I don't want to be that early for meetings, so.
The clock fell out from the city. Rick, after 30 years, retired last week Wednesday. Just at the wrong time.
Oh, no. So,
That's really bad news.
I don't know if you're breaking any union rules by just going up there and just fixing the clock, but if you need any help, I'll help you, okay?
Can you do the one in our other boardroom to that other conference room? Because that's not right either. Anyone else from miscellaneous? Yes, Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, just last shameless plug for the year. I'm wearing red today. Tonight's the Gilda's gala, so a little splash of red for that great community organization. And also, coincidentally, this week, in addition to wearing green on Thursday for St. Patrick's Day, Saturday is the Feast of St. Joseph, and Joseph happens to be the patron of many countries, including our neighbors to the north, Canada and South Mexico, as well as one of the patrons of Italy. So for our Italian brothers and sisters who will celebrate this week, along with our Irish brothers and sisters, so it's a great week of festivals.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes, just want to say that the city of Grand Rapids has the NFBPA coming very soon and looking for participation from Kent County. This is a conference that does education and some learning for African American elected officials and administrators throughout the country. And just wanted to put a note out that that is an event that's coming to Grand Rapids. It will be visited by A-list athletes as well as A-list African-American actors and entertainers, and it might be something that Kent County may be interested in supporting. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Antor.
I didn't get my third bite at the apple, so I'm gonna take my
You
first
do-
bite at miscellaneous.
You do have miscellaneous.
I know it, thank goodness. I just wanted to point out to Commissioner Bukowski, as I'm sure he knows, we have a lot of handicapped people living outside of Grand Rapids. And to get from outside of Grand Rapids to Grand Rapids is just as big a struggle as getting from Grand Rapids to another place on the earth. And also, between about 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock every day, US 131 is basically gridlocked. Anybody that's traveled that lately, and I would still prefer to take, as bad as Alpine Avenue is, it's getting worse. That's through some lack of planning, but I digress. Planning is really important. We're always gonna leave somebody out in these conversations. There's always gonna be somebody that's not happy for whatever reasons, and I just think we need to take an honest look at all the venue locations, an honest look, and not just, we say we check that box. That's my public comment.
Okay, your miscellaneous.
My miscellaneous.
Any other Commissioner miscellaneous? All right, I do have just a couple of things. I wanted to thank everyone for their time, for going to work sessions, to follow up on Commissioner Bolter's thank you to our chair, our administrator, our legal counsel. This was a lot of work, a lot of hours, many things that aren't necessarily recognized. I do think it's important to recognize all that hours of work. I want to note that our next meeting on the agenda does say Tuesday, April 5th at 8:30. It is not. We will be canceling that, and you'll be getting notice of that cancellation. The next finance meeting will be April 19th at 8:30 a.m. And with that, we are adjourned.